had to come all the way to North Carolina to see the two of you. I will see you soon in person. Sam Laprade is our guest today. Oh my gosh. Welcome to the Inner Shift podcast, Sam. You're an author, you're a public speaker, you're a philanthropist, you're a comedian. We're going to talk about that. But now you're an author of a book and also an Order of Ottawa recipient. Holy moly, you've been busy.
I feel like the podcast is over now because that took all of our time. But fantastic. I really appreciate that warm welcome and you've always been such a great cheerleader, so I appreciate it very much.
We're so happy to have you, Sam. It's been a while since I've seen you, and I'm just thrilled that you have joined us today. We're going to dive into a lot of different stuff. We all have sort of like overlapping experience and stuff, but we'll talk about some grief stuff and some partner narcissism things, which is like the meat and potatoes in there. But like, can we start with something fun and talk about vibrators? So like
Please.
Made in Canada, right?
Yes.
Your new book. I
Yes.
didn't know that. It's like, why don't we know more about this? An Instapot? I mean,
To be clear, there's more in the book than just vibrators, but yes.
I like to get that out there a little bit so we get that webhook.
Exactly. No, for sure. We wrote this book, Ottawa Made, and we told the stories of incredible, resilient people that really were looking to create something. And what I love about this story in particular is we all know the story of Nortel, let thousands of people go. We had one gentleman by the name of Robert Wang, and when he was let go from Nortel, he headed to the kitchen. And then we have two other people, a couple, and of course, that's Melody and Bruce Murison. They headed to the bedroom. And what they did was they created the We Vibe, Robert Wang, and created the Instapot. And we see people that really were under very challenging circumstances that took that moment to say, you know what, I want to make a difference. I want to do something. So they really did revitalize the whole sex industry and sex toy industry, and really became very very involved in their invention, but they did it so quietly and so humbly.
But am I getting this right? Wasn't it on a red carpet once, the We Vibe?
Yes. So it was. So it was at the Oscars. I believe it was 2009. And that's really when it became kind of a big deal, because what they did was they gave it out in all of those little Oscar bags that of course everybody covets, because there's like thousands and thousands of dollars worth of product in there. And they had this opportunity to be part of that, and that really set that company, We Vibe, to a brand new level. And everyone was buzzing about it, excuse the pun. And yeah, it was fantastic. It was a great opportunity for this humble couple with three kids living in North Gore. They didn't tell their neighbors what they were doing. So when these 18-foot tractor trailers were pulling up and dropping off pallets and pallets in their garage, the neighbors were a touch curious. So we tell their story, and I could have talked to them for a day and a half. They are such a lovely couple.
Well, let's talk about you talking, because I mean, this podcast is seen by people outside of our city, Ottawa. And this is very much a book about Ottawa, but it kind of speaks to me a little bit about hometown pride. I'm in the United States right now, and they're all saying to me, "Oh my God, we love that you Canadians are so proud and that you're standing up." And I don't want to get into politics, but I just hear all across the board that we do have pride. And what was the reason that you wanted to do this book?
Well, I think when I go back to October of 2023, as you know, both of you know that the radio station I was working for closed, and I bumped into Ron Corbett from Ottawa Press and Publishing, and he basically said to me, "Sam, are you looking for a different way to tell stories?" And I'm like, what do you have in mind? And we met for coffee, and I walked away from there with an opportunity to write this book about inventors, creators, and change makers in our region. And I think, like most people, Alanis Morrisette came to mind, Beaver Tales came to mind, all of these great inventions and people from our city. But the ones that surprised me the most were the ones that, were a little bit more quiet. People that were doing amazing things. We think about George Klein. He invented the first electric wheelchair, the change that he would have made in people's lives. But there's so many stories, and we're already hearing from people like, did you cover this and this and this? There could be a sequel already. So when I look back on it, and then bringing Caroline Phillips on board, who's a very talented writer, she definitely helped me up my writing game. So it was wonderful to work with another woman on this book as well. And what we found, and we really struggled with this, to be honest, there's not a lot of women inventors at that time, kind of looking back in time. So we really felt it was important to tell these stories, but also share that there was a few couples that we talk about. Obviously, we obviously profile people like Sandra Oh and Alanis Morrisette, but and Margaret Atwood. But I'm hoping that if a book like this is written in 10 or 20 years, that it's chock-a-block full of women, people with diversity and disabilities that are able to have their stories shared as well.
Maybe they'll be inspired by having an Instapot and a Vibe.
Exactly. There you go. Bedroom, kitchen. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this isn't your usual gig. I don't know if everybody knows this because they see you in public all the time, but you're an international fundraiser and you have a very big job. You have a very big life. Uh, and you do comedy about being married twice. I'm not judging. I have
Yeah.
Uh, and how I'm very curious as to how you take a very difficult thing in your life and you turn it into stand-up comedy. Like you're about to do another comedy
Mm,
show, right? For charity. Like how
yeah.
does that happen where you turn a really painful thing and you talk a lot about narcissism into something really funny?
Well, I think stand up was much cheaper than therapy, quite honestly. So that helped. But I think it really, the whole reason I sort of started to do it was I just thought I was hoping that at least one person would hear me and realize there's life after a bad relationship, after going through some tough stuff, and that you can eventually laugh about it. And I would have told you, 10 years ago, I would not be laughing about it. And now I get paid to laugh about it. So and to tell the jokes so people can kind of tell it. And really, I don't tell jokes, I tell my story, but I do it in a way that I'm hoping inspires others to realize that even the darkest day can you can crack a little bit of sunshine and see the humor in it. It has been very on a flip side of it, it has been very therapeutic for me, to be honest. And yeah, it's something I'm pretty proud of, that I've got up there and did it, and I continue to be asked to do it, which I think, oh my heavens, has not everybody heard this already? But it's a real honor to be asked, for sure.
I love that. I mean, we've joked before as well, and the other world that I'm in, which is senior living, and I find that not bottling my own humor and just, talking to people on the same level, but being able to add that little bit of humor into what could be a really stressful situation really, really helps to lighten the mood. You and I have, touched base over the being sandwiched, right in the sandwich generation between, children and your senior loved ones. You're a single mom, you lost your dad, and you're managing your mom's needs. And then you also have a recent graduate in your house. So what is that like? What is it like just being right in the middle in this awkward spot?
Yeah, I've described it to people before as I'm in the sandwich generation, and I'm bologna right in the middle. Like I just feel like I'm smushed in the middle, and I do feel like bologna some days. It's funny. Within about 6 months, my mother lost her license. My daughter got her license. Within 6 months, my mom was asking, if she could go out. My daughter was just going out. It's a very interesting dynamic to be in the middle. And I think in many ways, some of my parenting has shifted to kind of parenting my mom, which which is really hard to do, is trying to be her daughter. And I think working with you, Amy, allowed me, certainly during a very, very challenging time, to be the role of daughter as opposed to decision maker. We kind of put some options in front of my mom, and she chose one with a bit of encouragement. But it allowed me to, to be present for those things. This time of our lives, never easy. And I'll add the M word in there, which is menopause, which in my case is I'm pausing on men. But you add women going through
Me too.
menopause, also dealing with an aging parent, dealing with the fun of teenage daughters, wink, wink. And you add all of that into a big pot, and you wonder why you see women between 50 and 60 crying in every McDonald's drive-through. Um, and I think, the more that we talk about the challenges, recently, I reached out to somebody and said, you can't believe what happened. And, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, that happened to me too. But I think the more we sort of talk about those things, and we take the honest approach, I think each and every one of us will benefit from that, because it's a very challenging time. Um, and obviously I love my mom, I love my daughter, but there are days where I'm hiding in my walk-in closet. There's no two ways about it.
Well, Sam, I've seen your walk-in closet. I would like to live in your walk-in closet. And you have a
Yeah.
purse closet as well.
Yes.
I'm not sure that you would remember this. Amy and I referred to it on the podcast a couple times ago, but it was you that
Mm.
I called and said, my dad's prognosis is pretty bad.
Yeah.
What do I do? And you told me to call a woman named Amy Friesen.
Mhm.
That one right there. That
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
And, it was Kingston, right? Which for those that are from outside of Ottawa is a good 2-hour drive away from Ottawa. And I just didn't know what to do. So how do you maintain you in all of this?
Mm.
Like, how do you keep Sam present and able to help everybody else? Because it's got to be exhausting. I only did it with one parent, but it has to be really tough.
Yeah, there's some days better than others, to be frank. I mean, there's some days where by the time I hit my bedroom, I've could have been napping 2 hours before that. But it is exhausting. I think keeping a very, tight network in terms of my friends and who I can rely on has been really important. Those people that, reach in, we check on each other. That's been really key. And also, saying no sometimes, which, as is very hard for me, to say no, but there have been things I've had to say no to. So that's been, yeah, that's been very, very challenging for me, is to ensure that, I'm sort of managing the work and managing um life. It's not something I'm terribly good at, to be honest. I feel like I can't even give advice on it. I feel like I struggle with it. And I do have sometimes the odd time where I just have to, on a Sunday, I gotta be honest, I don't really do much. Like I just kind of hang out. I might nap, I might read a book, I might, watch a movie, but there are days where I just have to kind of be insular and and just take a long hot bath and just try not to think about much.
Well, you do have
It's
a beautiful bathtub.
I do. I do. It's easy to take a bath in there for sure.
I know,
Yeah.
it's lovely. It's
Yeah.
lovely. Just before, I'm sure Amy has a question, but just before we get there, I have been fortunate enough to spend time in the house that you personally decorated, and it's extraordinary. It's
Thank you.
extraordinary. So
Thank you.
And
it,
can
there,
you come to my house?
Yeah. Sure.
If you come to my house, you have to
Yeah.
pick up not only my 7-year-old socks from all over the floors, but also my
Right.
husband's, because
Right.
that's the
Right.
thing in my house. I
Yeah.
would say, like, a lot of caregivers, honestly, I mean, we've worked together as well, right? And a lot of caregivers feel like they're not measuring up, and it's because I think it's impossible to measure up. And everybody's striving for this balance. It does not exist. Like there's not a
Mhm.
balance. It's a teeter-totter. It's going to be heavy on one day and heavy on the other. And to your point before, these, being in that sandwich generation just like magnifies everything. And then as the caregiver, as the woman, as the individual, we just get smaller because we just only have so much output just to care and water the people to make sure no one dies, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like at some point I'm just like, all right, has Eva been fed? Is she happy? Are the dogs and the cats good? The husband can take care of himself. Great. Like that's my minimum at that. That's my maximum rather at that point.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think it's fair. And I think that we do need to kind of reevaluate. You said you don't do much on Sundays, but you are doing it, right? We need to reevaluate that. And we mentioned that on a previous podcast too, is that it's okay to rest and
Mhm.
you're recharging and you're giving back to yourself and you're taking that time you need. And I think it's really important that especially as women who often we just don't stop, right? And I have those same monsters in my head that say, oh, I should do something. Oh, and so I don't even sit still all the time I want to sit still. I'll just go putter for a second and it almost like kind of makes
Mhm.
me feel a little better. It appeases the gremlins in my head and then I'll just go and chill out for a couple more minutes just to really like recharge my battery.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I need to do that more. I wish I was the kind of person. I have a friend who gets up at 5 o'clock in the morning and heads to yoga for 6 o'clock in the morning, and
No.
I wish I
I know
could.
who that is.
Yeah,
I know.
exactly. I wish that I could be that person. I just yeah, and I know that I need to look after myself better physically and mentally, but there's just days where honestly getting the two legs in two different panholes is one of those things that you're kind of proud of, that you're got yourself out of the house
Mhm.
and just keep up with things. But there's times where honestly, like, that I have fantastic days where I'm like, things are going, mom's having a good day, Avery's had a good day. Things are good with my business. I've gotten some orders for some of the work that I do, or I've, just landed a big gift or something like that. There's fantastic days too. And I think certainly as a kid, I think very much I grew up thinking that everything had to be a fantastic, great day, or it wasn't a good day at all. But I think now that I've gotten older and sort of been through some tough times, those days where it's you've just gotten by, that there's success there as well. So it's not as black and white for me anymore.
So,
Yeah.
Sam, you've raised tens of millions of dollars for not-for-profits. You've also probably donated thousands of hours of your own time on stages and hosting events. Does that act as a bit of a salve on your wounds?
Mm,
That make
yeah.
you feel better? And I used to do that too. And
Yeah.
I'm curious how it feels for you when you give back to the community in this way, other than We Vibe.
Yeah. I don't know another way. Like, and I don't mean to sound like, I think each and every one of us has a place to in philanthropy. And when I talk about philanthropy, most people think I'm just talking about money, and I'm talking about time, talent, and treasure. So I think everybody can be a philanthropist. Everyone can give of time, everyone can give of talent, and if you're able to give of treasure, to give a financial donation. So for me, when I think about what I do for philanthropy, much of that for me is absolutely just the way that I think each and every one of us can give back. And it's ebbs and flows. There's times where, I'm out 4 or 5 nights a week, and there's times where I don't get asked to do anything in a week. So it all kind of comes and goes, but I think it's important for us. I'm so incredibly proud of my daughter. You have to do 40 hours here in Ontario to get your high school diploma. You have to do 40 hours of volunteer work. She just hit 1,000 hours.
No,
And I'm
wow.
so incredibly proud of her. And she's worked for Big Brothers
Learns,
Big
she
Sisters.
learned, she
Yeah,
learned
she's,
from Sam. I think
yeah,
that you need to take some credit from that,
yeah,
from
Yeah.
Because like she was raised at your knee. She's been coming to events since she
Yeah.
was knee high to a grasshopper. And
Yeah.
I've seen her and I can't even believe she's a grown up adult
I know.
person now because it's just shocking to me.
Yeah.
But you taught her that.
Yeah.
You taught her
But a lot of the initiative was on her own too. I'm really just really proud of her. She's going to graduate this year. She's going to head to Algonquin College. She's very excited. I'm excited to see what she's going to do. And I think, if each and every one of us could donate an hour, a week or an hour a month, I think you'd see a big change in this country. I really do. I mean, I get to do really fun things, and Avery was sorting clothes for Big Brothers Big Sisters, and I get to be on a stage. But I think, she has feels just as rewarded in terms of her work.
Isn't that the name of one of your shows? An Hour to Give?
Oh, did I just? Yes, it is. Of course.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
you have to
I
give an
didn't really
hour.
notice it as I was saying that, but yeah.
I was like, isn't that one of the names of one of your shows, which is
Yes.
an idea that you conceptualized, right? Is that you would do an hour-long show to show where money could go in the community.
Exactly. And it's been going for just about 7 years.
Yeah.
Just over 7 years now. Yeah.
It's won a bunch of awards, hasn't it?
It has, and also during my radio career, I was able to land a couple of radio awards for programming with Indigenous people, as well as with the Pride community. So those are two that I'm very proud of as well. Yeah.
Amazing.
Mhm.
I'm looking at Amy like she's just like looking with the, okay, there's a lot
It's
to
so good. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
I just want you to give yourself more credit. I want you to
Aw.
you really you're doing so much for all the people that you love and all the people in your community and, wider than that. And I just think it's so commendable. So
Thank you.
congrats on that and just soak that in. I'm moved by it. I mean, I know you, but I'm just like,
Yeah.
there's just so much. It's so good.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. When I start to sort of talk about my resume, people that don't know me, they're like, "How old are you? 85 years old?" I'm like, "Just about."
Some days feel
But
like it.
yeah, as I like to tell people, I'm a year away from the Shoppers Drug Mart discount. So yeah,
Oh, I already have it.
yeah, there
I
you
already
go.
have it.
Uh,
So in the tough times, and I consider myself fortunate enough to have been with you during both of our really tough times. Um,
mhm.
Marriage. How come you don't want to do that anymore?
Oh heavens, no, it's not for me. And I really think, I was married twice. After the first time, I swore I'd never get married again. And then I heard the Australian accent, which most women are attracted to.
It'll
And
get you every
uh,
time.
yeah, it's not good. Now I hear it and I just think, oh God. Um, but I think from my perspective, I'm just not willing to give up what I have now, which is an incredible amount of freedom. I have I have the house I want, my kids happy. I love to travel. I've got a big circle of friends that I don't get to spend enough time with them. So entering into the dating world is just not something that I'm interested in doing. I just don't think I'm marriage material, to be honest. I'm just somebody that is just far too independent. And it did cause a lot of challenges in my marriages. Like I remember, for both of the two gentlemen that I married, they would be like, "Oh my gosh, you know so many people, it's so great." And then within a month of being married, they're like, "Oh God, can you stop like, being out every night? And can you stop, like, can you just be a bit quieter? And can you be a bit this and a bit that?" And I'm like, "Oh heavens." So um, I don't think I picked great partners, to be honest. But at the same time, I think I would love to be able to normalize being single a bit more. Because I think we often sort of think everyone's got to be partnered up, and um,
Yeah.
I get more joy out of going out with 6 or 7 gal pals for dinner than I ever did by going out for dinner with a partner. So
Yeah,
I just didn't
and
pick great people.
I'm fascinated by that because Amy asked me the other day, about what this life and this adventure of traveling across North America is for me, and it's freedom. That's the word that I came up with. It's freedom, because very similar to you, I think. My life was very much about making sure that everybody else was okay, and I wasn't doing okay.
Yeah.
So there's that
Yeah.
freedom. So when you say normalize being single, what do you mean by that? Like that people don't
I
look at
just
us and
mean,
just think we're gonna meet the next person along the way?
yeah, like typically, like I get asked all the time, like within about a year of being divorced, it's like, oh, you're gonna start dating again? I'm like, no, like I don't want to. And I still get like I've been divorced now for the second time for like 7 years or 8 years. And I still get people, oh, are you gonna, are you on a dating site? I'm like, nobody wants this on a dating site because I'm just not interested. Like I remember after my first marriage, two of my other girlfriends were also divorced, and the three of us decided um to go on a dating site. I lasted 72 hours, one lasted a week, and the other one met her husband. So there's the three versions of online dating. She met her second husband, but I'm just not interested in that. I don't want to give up what I've created. And I remember, it's kind of an intimate thing, but I remember the night before I was going to tell my second husband that it was over. And I remember lying in bed and he was lying next to me. And I remember saying, if this means that you will never ever be in a relationship again, are you okay with that? Like I was saying that to myself. And I remember answering myself very quickly, like, yeah, sister, I'm okay with that. And I have gone out, like people have asked me out for dinner and that kind of thing, and I've gone, and it's just not for me. I've got too much I want to do, and a lot of people are not patient for, like certainly I'm not suggesting I'm a big celebrity or anything, but at the same time, if I'm going out somewhere and I go to the grocery store, typically I'm bumping into 4 or 5 people and having little chats with them, going to a Senators game or going to a Red Blacks game or even at an event. And it's really hard to find a partner that is okay with you taking the time to do those kinds of things. And I sort of related a little bit to someone that is married to somebody in the political world, that there's no way that the mayor or city councilor can do those things either and sort of not get stopped and asked about this or ask about that. And so to find somebody that's okay with you having chats or getting hugged or hugging people or whatever, like I had two partners that weren't really happy with that. So I'm not willing to give that up because I think I like the role I play in the community, and yeah, and I don't want to give it up.
I want to pick something back up from what you said, Sam, and thanks for sharing that. Because I've had a similar experience, and you were talking about when you were laying in bed and you were just like focused on like, okay, like what's the plan? And I am also divorced and remarried. Look at the three of us.
Yeah.
But I remember that moment very clearly. And my ex-husband kept saying, like, what do you want to do this weekend? And I kept saying, I don't think I'll be here. And what do you want to do this weekend? It was like hours, right? And I just kept delaying it. And like we were sitting on that couch and he says, what do you want to do this weekend? I said, I'm leaving. Like it was just like I was done.
Mhm.
And it's like, I believe that you have a similar background, and Timothy and I have a similar background where I was leaving an abusive marriage, and
Mhm.
it just takes everything you have to
Mhm.
say, I'm out, right? And
Mhm.
and like you'll lose a lot. And so I'm super interested in what you're saying because I know what it's like to regain yourself after that. And
Mhm.
for you, like throwing yourself in with, all your philanthropy, and like you're talking about meeting all these people out in, supermarkets and Sens game and stuff. And to me, it's like, that's too many people, right? Like it's like we all deal with things differently, but it's really interesting to me that not only have you built yourself back up, because that takes from you being in
Mhm.
abusive marriages and relationships, and like narcissism and all that stuff, it takes from you, and it's not coming back right away, and you have to actually work at it to get
Mhm.
it to come back. And so I, I'm so proud of you. Like, it's like, I'm proud of any woman that can do that, because all of us kind of understand that situation. And it's just that, you know, I just want kind of to point that out, that you know, it can be done if people are listening to us in that type of relationship. You've got this, right? Like,
Yeah.
center yourself, ask yourself what you want, and execute quickly and get the hell out.
Mhm. And I think for me, the irony for me, which you're both going to be shocked at, which I've shared publicly before, but there was a point in time, particularly in my second marriage. So my second marriage was very, very challenging. And I think from that perspective, which surprises people, is that I was very, very quiet. I didn't say much. And I got to the point where it didn't matter if I ordered the wrong beverage. I didn't say the right thing to the waitress. I didn't say the right thing, about which book I was reading. I didn't watch the right movies. I didn't drive the right car. I didn't choose the right vacation destinations, whatever it was. So I eventually, you just kind of stop talking. So the irony for me that, and I say this because a lot of people were involved in making it happen. The irony for me to go from that to a radio host, or to someone that's on, so many different stages in the city and internationally. um, I think that that probably is the biggest shock to me, because I had become so quiet, and that silence actually is what saved me in the end, because I had gone out for dinner with my ex-husband and my family and a friend and her family, and she phoned me the next day and she said, "I need to see you." And I was like, "Oh my heavens, like what's wrong?" And she said to me, "You didn't say anything last night." And she's like, "How can we get you out of this marriage?" And it's really the sentence that changed
Wow.
my life, because I really realized how bad it had gotten. And she kind of leaned across the table and she's like, "You not talking? What's up with that?" Like, and I was like, "Really? Is it that noticeable?" And she's like, "Sam, she's like, you're like a shell of yourself. You're nervous, I was on edge.
Oh,
Was everything
you're
okay
getting
all the
me.
time?" And
Oh,
yeah, it
I
was
get it.
hard.
I
Yeah.
remember
And
that
so
point with mine too.
yeah.
Like,
And so I think from that perspective, and then I put a plan in place. And the very first thing I did was I stopped arguing about anything. So, for about a month, if he said the sky was green, it was a beautiful shade of emerald. Like I was like, "Yep," it didn't matter. So that was a sign. I think he realized that things had shifted a little bit. And then in absolute perfection of Sam Laprade is I wrote a plan of how this was going to happen. So I say that because I'm a planner. And so I created almost a business case of how this was going to happen. And I said, when he could move out, what he was to take, what was, take your own stuff, you're not taking anything of mine, what was going to happen with my daughter, what was going to happen in terms of money. And I just laid it out all out. And I think it was a very, very big surprise. But at the same time, I felt like I had gained a little bit of my power back. Then I went through, when it kind of ended and he had gone back to Australia. I had gone through a little bit like, "Oh, I failed again," and what are people going to say? And then I realized really quickly, honestly, my kid only had one childhood. So, and it didn't matter how much money I lost, because she could never get another childhood again. So that was kind of that was very liberating for me. And then I quit my job and I started my own company, and that also was empowering, scary as all get out, but also really empowering. And then I started to people started to say, yeah, they wanted to get involved in the stuff that I was doing. So it all was very, but the silence, ironically, although it was killing me, also saved me in the end.
I'm kind of choked up because I was there through
Mhm.
some of this, right? And I would love to talk about there's one husband I really like, and there's one that I have a non-disclosure agreement with. Um, and I was so proud of you. And when
Mm,
I helped contribute to your nomination for the Order of Ottawa.
Yeah.
I was writing it wondering this exact question is, do you know how freaking cool you are?
Aw.
Because I knew you personally to know that you do exactly what you just did, right? Is that women, we have a tendency to, diminish a little bit. And then you didn't. And then you were like, I'm going to be on stage and I'm going to be funny and I'm going to talk about, really, you know, interesting things that have the room roaring. Was there a moment that you felt like, I got this. I got this. That you came out of being the people pleaser and you
Yeah.
came in, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to build a closet for all of my handbags. That's
Yeah.
what I'm doing.
That was
And I
fun.
don't care who, like,
Yeah.
was there a pivot for you of that? Because I
Yeah.
saw it happen, but I don't think I know why it happened.
Yeah, I think part of it for me was a really big pivot in my life was when I got a call, and I'll never forget it. I was still in my nightie, and it was like 11 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and my news director called, and I had been filling in for different people on air, and I got a call that in March of 2021, now I've got to think back, that Mark Sutcliffe was going to be retiring from radio and that I
The
was going to
mayor.
get that shot. And
Ottawa's
now, of
mayor, for
course,
people that don't know. Ottawa.
exactly. And so now
Yeah.
he's the mayor of the city. But, at that time, I think that was a very big moment for me to be able to transition fully as into a radio host and have that opportunity to to really know that my voice was being listened to. Our ratings were really good when I was on
You
the air
were
as well.
so amazing in that job.
I loved that job. That was my
So
favorite thing I've ever done.
amazing in that job.
I loved
And
it.
then
And
unfortunately, the media business is what it is. And
it's a tough business, but I'm so glad it happened. There's people that, kind of grumble about being let go. I've come to the place now where I'm so grateful it happened at all. Um, I mean, I miss it. I would love to go back, but the reality is that moment, I think, was the moment I realized that back to that kind of I could do anything. That was a moment for me. And as you know, I'm not speechless often. That was a moment where she said, "Do you need a few minutes?" And I said, "Can I call you back?" And it took me about a half an hour to call her back because I was crying so hard, but tears of joy. I was so excited because I knew that I was doing radio different than others, and I wanted to bring that kind radio um, to more people. And I knew this was a huge opportunity. Yeah,
I have
it was
another question for you about that, but I'm waiting in, I think, and not giving Amy enough time. But I do have I do have a question as we move on. But Amy, I feel like I'm crowding you out a little bit.
You go ahead. You got a question, tip of tongue, go for it.
Okay, so you know my life.
Mhm,
Both of you know my life very well. Sam Avery is going to go on and be an adult human being.
mhm,
How how do you prepare for the fact that you've been sandwiched in taking
mhm,
care of your mom? You took care of your dad too, and sadly lost your dad. And you also have a lot of dogs.
oh,
um,
how
and
did
and
that happen?
care of
Mhm.
Avery. Are you preparing for what just Sam looks like in your 50s?
Yeah, you know what? It's a really good question, and there's been a few things recently where I realized that's coming faster than
Yeah.
faster than I could anticipate. And I think I'm excited about it. I'm excited for her. But transitioning from sort of, to her leaving, I think she'll be here for a couple more years because of the cost of housing, to be honest.
Yeah,
I think she'll be here and she does like her wing of the house. So it's
it is. It is
she's
pretty cool.
it is pretty
It is
cool.
pretty cool.
So I think from that perspective, I'm excited. I only really want to work from a full-time perspective, maybe for another decade. So I do look forward to traveling. I love traveling by myself. I've traveled Europe. I've traveled many all over the States myself. So I look forward to those opportunities, traveling with friends, traveling with her, traveling by myself. We're heading to Australia as well for 5 weeks to do a speaking tour over there. So I'm hoping to maybe, land some of those opportunities as I get older. Maybe there's another book in me. So I have started to think about that probably more in the last few months than I have ever before. And I'm excited, to be honest, about it. And I think when you give your children both roots and wings, you've done a good job. So I've given her deep roots, I hope, but also those wings to fly. And knowing that, she can always fly back to this coop is a good thing too.
Yeah, and I think that's great advice because I did a shit job. Um, and if I could offer any advice to people is, I just didn't think it was going to happen. Like I
Mm,
was just, you know, in denial. And then you throw menopause into that, you throw a divorce into that, and all of a sudden I'm driving across North America in a vehicle.
mhm,
But no, I think if we all can figure out a way to prepare better for life changes, which is what
mhm,
Amy teaches us to do, right?
mhm,
Is if you're sandwiched, there's going to become a time, Amy, that we're not sandwiched and we've been needed for so long, like needed, like to live and breathe and to pay for things and to, help get a driver's license. And then all of a sudden we're not needed. And for me, um, it was a really devastating time because nobody needed me anymore.
mhm.
It'll be like baloney flopping in the wind.
Yeah,
What are you gonna
exactly.
do? Right?
Exactly.
You're
Yeah.
not
It's
sandwiched
like,
anymore.
when your arms do that thing, right? Where it's like, okay, what is going on with this as I approach 60? But
Yeah.
yeah, it was really lonely that nobody needed me. And
Mm,
our very good friend Max Keeping died around the same time. My dad
mhm,
died, two dogs died. I was literally feeling useless. And I thought at the time, oh my gosh, I wish more women did this. But you know what we don't do? We don't share that. We don't
Yeah.
right.
share. And that's what we're doing with this podcast is, you know what? Shit's gonna happen. And let's talk about how you feel after being sandwiched. I don't know, Amy, do you have it? Like I'm totally catching you off guard, but is there advice for life after being sandwiched? Because I just got in my car and drove a very long way.
I think that as women, and I think that with our various backgrounds of narcissism being in our lives with our partners and different people in our lives, I think that we're trained to serve. And if you can funnel it somewhere else, because it's a part of our personality, it's how your brain grows. Especially if you've had, this type of narcissism, for instance, is a trauma, right? Like, or other abuse or whatever. Not everybody's had this, but there's lots of us that have had to deal with that stuff, and it rewires your brain and trains you to want to always have to please someone else. And
Mhm,
so I think that that's kind of what the discovery right now is of people that are, you know, Sam, you're still at the moment, you're even as Avery grows, and your mom's there, like you're still in that sandwich. It just gets a little bit wider, right? It's
mhm,
like, so hopefully it's a stepped opportunity and it's not drastic.
mhm,
But for other women that are also listening, I think that if you take that stepped approach, I mean, to Timothy's point, I talk to families all the time about planning for elder care, plan, plan, plan. Sam, you're a
mhm,
planner, and to a certain amount, I'm a planner, right? But the thing is that it doesn't have to be like you don't need a giant manual. You just need to give yourself an hour. Think about what the hell you want to do. Think about what kind of opportunity might there be, and like, is there something that as you sit there and you guys are in your 50s, I'm in my 40s, and like I have a 7-year-old, so I'm a little ways away. But as you sit there in those years and things start to kind of come apart in that sandwich or are apart, um, I think that we should be looking at it as an opportunity to really have a look and say, okay, what the hell do I want to do? Let's get out and do it, because now's the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's
Yeah,
a
and
really good point.
I think that that's so important because I was raised by one of my parents was a pretty malignant narcissist, and I feel there's a bit of like, you know, deprogramming that needs to happen. And you know, Sam, you have done such a great job of being a giver that I wonder how excuse me, how aging impacts your view of being the giver. You do it out of the love of your heart. I did it because I was trained to do that from a very young age, for a bunch of different toxic reasons. And do you see that as like kind of your focal point for your own belief structure? Is
Yeah,
that
I
something
honestly,
you
like I
want
said
to do?
earlier, I don't know another way. And I don't want to sound like I'm saintly or anything when I say that, but I don't know another way. I really don't. That's, I just see that everybody has a role to play, and here's the role that I'm going to play, and here's the opportunities that I'm going to be partaking in. I think part of it for me is, to have a very strong foundation with the community, because I've said this before, there's days where I'll need the community, and this community, there's days that they'll need me, and I think each of us will go through that. It's how much we each put in the tank at the end of the day, and I feel like it's my duty in some ways to do that. So I don't see it as anything other than what I feel like being a part of this community is like.
So is so I can imagine travel brings you joy. Your
Yes.
handbag closet brings you joy. Is there, but Avery obviously is the number one thing that brings you joy. Is there anything that you still just want to do? Like that you
Oh
haven't,
yeah.
like what?
Yeah, like I did want to write a book, so I can tick
Oh,
that off. Um,
Nailed
um,
it.
there's lots I want to do in terms of travel. I think the Australia trip will be a big one. Being able to
don't
work in
get
Australia.
married. Do
No,
not
I
get
won't,
married.
trust me. Yeah,
Don't fall
trust
for
me.
the
As soon as
accent.
Yeah, no, trust me. I'll walk around just giving everyone the finger. Um, I think probably from my perspective, I really want to travel in Europe more. I've never done Costa Rica, things like that. So there's lots of places that I'd like to go. And I've always kind of dreamt about, well, kind of doing what you're doing in a way, Timothy, is that maybe leave the city kind of end of November and come back in April. Um, I won't be living out of my car though, because I would lose my mind. But God love you for doing that. I would want to be at the Hilton. And so that's kind of my role. But I would love to be able to stay somewhere for 3 or 4 months and work from there, because I can work anywhere in the world. So like you can. So I think part of it for me is maybe doing that in a few years. I also love Prince Edward Island. I've always dreamt about having a place in PEI. So.
Me too. It's so
Uh,
beautiful.
Amy
Mhm.
knows this, but I changed my Siri because for people that are just joining, I've driven 20,000 kilometers over the last 6 months. I call it my healing journey, but I also got to see some really cool stuff. I changed my Siri to an Australian accent.
Oh, that's so funny.
She got tired of spending the day with the other accent. So
It, it
That's
just like,
awesome.
it makes me giggle every time that, I'm told to turn left or turn right, and it's this
Yeah.
Australian accent, but I'm not getting married again. I'm not getting, I
No,
think I
no.
was getting married the second time. So that was a bit of a surprise for everyone. But this time I'm pretty serious. I mean, who wants to live in my car with me, right? Um,
Buddy
but
does. Yeah.
yeah.
Buddy the dog's there.
Oh, yeah, no, hang on, oh, there he,
Hello, buddy.
Hello, buddy.
there he is.
Yeah.
But I think that that's an amazing thing when you have a dream that's just for you,
Mhm.
not for everybody else, but what do you want to do? And I
Yeah.
think it's really cool. I think Avery is going to want to go if you do Europe.
Yeah, that's true. She'll probably want to come, but I have a friend who likes to travel a lot too, and you know, she's kind of got her daughter is off to university, and she's dealing with some of the same stuff I am in terms of you know, her mom as well. So I think you find community with people that are also experiencing the same thing as you. So we've talked about maybe doing some travel together. We traveled last year. We took a 10-day road trip from New Orleans to Nashville, and we
Oh, yeah.
had so much fun.
Yeah.
And so, you know, those are the kinds of opportunities we see for the future as well.
I did it too, but I think that you probably did it in a little more glamorous way than I did. I think
Did
you
in a
did.
few Airbnbs, yeah.
Yeah. Mine was more, I'm in a truck stop right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going indoors soon because, you know, this is coming to an end and I'm moving toward Ottawa, but this is one of the last times that I will sleep in a truck stop. So I consider it a badge of honor, honestly. It's like,
Yeah.
you know,
One of the
I
I
last
gotta be
times
honest. I
this
gotta be honest. I was a bit worried about you. I'll be honest. One of our mutual friends saw me this morning, and she's like, "How's Timothy?" And I said, "I'm always a bit worried, but she's seeming to be okay."
she's
Yeah,
still alive.
yeah,
As far
she's
as
still alive.
she's still alive, she's going to be on this podcast later today, so she's still
Yeah,
alive. Yeah, I've never been afraid out here. I've met lovely people, and but it's just something that I needed to do. And as you know, I love to travel, so
yeah,
is what it is.
I
for
think
sure.
I think we've come to our natural ending point, ladies.
Thank
Sam,
you.
thank you
I'm
so
going to
much.
see you both very soon. I'm
I
so
know we're
can't
gonna
excited.
see
wait.
Timothy in person.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know if
Okay.
are you gonna look taller? Are you gonna look shorter? I don't know.
It's gonna be like, you know, when those astronauts came back and they're like 2 inches taller, it's gonna be exactly like that.
Right? I think so. Sam,
I
thanks
love
so
it.
much for coming on. It's
My
been really
pleasure.
great. Thanks for being so open with our audience, with us. And I think to your point before, if people just open up and have these conversations regarding whatever, right? Whatever they're struggling with, caregiving, mental stuff, like mental health, abuse, all that stuff, really the community is much closer than we think
Right.
it is. And so just be brave for everyone listening, have that conversation. And if you could for us, like, subscribe, and notify, and we'll see you on the next Inner Shift podcast.